as well. Thank you for coming along. It's good to have the public in again. I declare this meeting open at 9 o'clock and 24 seconds. I would like to advise the meeting attendees that this meeting is being audio recorded. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I have not received any leave of absence. However, I notice that Councillor Wilcox is not here, but I have not received a leave of absence.
I believe Councillor Wilcox will be with us very soon. I'm not sure where Councillor Hall is at the moment.
And Councillor Hall, Councillor Raven, have you received any apologies? Because I certainly haven't.
Just let me double check, Madam Chair.
No, they're both here, Madam Chair. They're just in the facilities.
Please, through the chair, if you want to speak, please request through the chair.
I don't have any apologies, but I understand that they're in the building. They're just preparing themselves.
Thank you.
To meet.
Hopefully they'll meet with us very shortly. All right, I would like to now refer to item 4.1, and can the Director of Innovation and City Transformation, Mr. Burke, please enter the discussions before we open for discussions on this matter. Do any councillors wish to declare of conflict of interest? No conflicts of interest. I now refer to the Director of Innovation and City Transformation to open public discussion. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read and open up for any questions.
Do any councillors have any questions?
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
Councillor Raven has moved. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bannon, show of hands in favour, please. That has been carried. Thank you so much. Okay. I note that 4.2 has a confidential report contained within it. Do any councillors wish to move the meeting into closed session to discuss the contents of the confidential report? Councillor Karansky.
I'd like to discuss the report in a closed session, yes,
Okay,
please. So I'd like to move into confidential, if I may.
I know that Councillor Karansky has moved to close this meeting to the public in accordance to section 2751C of the Local Government Regulations 2012. This report is considered confidential due to the following reason. The information contained in the report pertains to the 2020-21 local government budget. Is there a seconder to close the meeting? Councillor Fraser has seconded that. Can I have a show of hands, please? Who's in support? Thank you. That has been carried. The motion has been carried. The meeting is now closed to the public. I now kindly request that all members of the public please leave the room. You'll be notified when the meeting is reopened. The recording of this meeting will now be suspended until the meeting reopens. Okay, welcome back the members of the public. Okay. Now, councillors, we don't actually have a motion for this. Is someone happy to put something up, please? Councillor Raven.
I'm happy to move deferral of the report to full council to give the staff time to consider option 4. But I understand that the Mayor was happy to defer it to the next round to have even more time again. So I'm open to either option, but I think we could probably get to option 4 for next week and then work on the finer details afterwards and get a full briefing. And the Director's nodding at me profusely, so that must be a good idea.
Okay, so can you assist the minute clerk with some wording, please?
Exactly what she's got on the board right now.
Which I can't see. Matter be deferred to the next ordinary council meeting to be held on the 17th of June for further consideration. Councillor Francie, you seconding that? Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you, that has been carried. That marks the end of Director of Innovation and City Transformations report. Is there any general business? No general business. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will now refer to item 5.1. Can the Finance Manager, Ms Bugg, please enter the discussions? Before we open discussions on this matter, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflicts of interest. I now refer to Finance Manager, Ms Bugg, to open public discussion. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I take the report as read. There's a couple of key points I'd like to highlight. This is the first full month of starting to see the impacts of COVID-19 on our financial numbers. We have in this report noted that there are direct costs of $631,000 that we're tracking for COVID, and those costs are additional hygiene requirements, deep cleansers, things like that we've had to spend money on as a result of COVID-19. Difficult to track lost revenue. We can put in the variance to budget, but that's not going to be an actual figure, so we're not tracking that one. You'll note that we do have an operating deficit at the end of April. That also is part of, or the impact of the loss in interest revenue, which is $1 million year to date against budget. The bulk water charge is still impacting on both revenue and expenditure. However, that's fairly much a pass-through, so the bottom line impact is not major there. However, it clearly is a variance in each of those categories. The rest of the report is similar to last month, and that is there's no significant change in the sundry debtors report. The rates and charges are mid-term for the March quarter charges. There's nothing other than that I'd like to highlight at this point in time, but happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Stemp.
Through the Chair, just in relation to AMSEQ, obviously it's under bank guarantee, which is a secure debt, but is there a guide as to when that's likely to be repaid?
Through the Chair.
Yeah.
That debt is actually sitting with the business that has that infrastructure as a chasing of that debt, so the speaking with KMSEQ. They were just working out the timing of receipt of that. I can double check to see whether that's happened. We were expecting it fairly soon.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Is someone happy to move the report? Councillor Stemp, Councillor Bannon seconding. All those in favour, show of hands, please. That has been carried. Thank you. That marks the end of the Finance Manager's report. Is there any general business? Ms Bugg, no? No general business. Thank you, Ms Bugg.
Thank you.
I will now refer to item 6.1. I believe the Director of Organisational Services, Mr Robert Strachan, is going to speak to this one. Before we open for discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflict of interest. Mr Strachan, could you please present the report?
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Good morning, councillors. This report is tabled today at the request of Council. A GB item was raised at a prior local government meeting requesting administration to review access to the building given the 24/7 nature of the job that you have as councillors. That has been, I suppose, carefully considered. The previous arrangements that were in place were access to the administration centre from 6 to 7 days a week, access to the car park 24/7, and you've been provided with the technology that enables you to work remotely from the administration centre. However, given the, I suppose, the nature of the roles that you all play, we've decided to look at the provision of 24/7 access to the administration centre. The risk assessment has been undertaken for that, and part of that risk assessment is that elected members will be responsible for their own health and safety, including working alone and fatigue management while working in the building after hours. We are suggesting that only immediate family members are permitted in the administration centre after hours with the elected representatives, mindful that many of you will have children that you will need to care for, and they may need to accompany you into the administration centre. Also, elected members would be responsible for the immediate family members, and I suppose just in terms of making sure the maintaining confidentiality of material in the workplace is maintained. What the administration proposes to do, just in support of councillors accessing the building after hours, is to update the technology around access to the building, occupant sensing and egress. We're looking at implementing in-person based security sweeps, so there is actually a physical sweep of the floor 5 while you're actually in the building, just to make sure that you're okay, and also to implement photo identification with regard to elected members. The process in relation to, or the thought process behind restricting access to family members and elected members is around, there's no internal support services in the building after hours, so there is a heightened level of risk if there's an incident, injury or illness. We don't have first aid officers, we don't have floor wardens in terms of fire and emergencies. Facilities management aren't available, and security actually aren't permanently on site after hours. So that was the reasoning behind limiting access to councillors and their family members. If there was a situation where you needed to host a meeting on site after hours, that could be arranged through the administration, would give you the opportunity to do that. We also have various community facilities in the libraries and so forth that are open on the weekends and into the evenings that also could be used to host those particular meetings. Happy to take questions.
Before I open up for questions, I would like to say I've actually enjoyed coming in, that might sound a bit weird, coming in on weekends and having the access. Last weekend was the only weekend I haven't since I've been back as a councillor, so it is certainly something we need in our role. Can I just ask you, Mr Strachan, to elaborate on number 3 in reference to councillors' expense and entitlements policy and procedure? What effect does that have?
Oh, it just means that we will need to stipulate in that policy that you've got 24/7 access to the administration centre. That policy already stipulates that you've got 24 access to the councillor car park.
Right.
The same will have to be put in place for the administration centre.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Stimp.
Through the chair, I guess I just wanted to inquire as to the implementation cost and ongoing costs of such a setup. Is there what sort of costs are involved, please?
Mr Strachan.
There's been a minor implementation cost, and the exact figure I don't know, in terms of reconfiguring the alarm system. That's been a fairly simple change. We've simply moved away from a PIN number approach to disarming and arming the alarm system to using your security card to swipe the keypad. There's also been a pad put in, you might have noticed it next to the door, that highlights green if the floor is armed, the alarm system is on for your floor, and red if it's not, just to give you more information in relation to whether there's someone already in the building or not on your particular floor. With regard to the additional cost in terms of lighting and air conditioning after hours, Some councils around us are trying to scale back the time that councillors are in their facilities. I guess time will tell in terms of how much it's used after hours. I've got no real way of judging how often you will be in the building at this particular point in time, but I don't imagine the cost will be significant.
Sorry, so the air conditioning and lighting would only come on when people were in the building, or is air conditioning and lighting on permanently, or?
No, the air conditioning will need to be turned on when the councillor comes on the floor, and the lights can be turned on. So we will provide you with instructions. I think we have provided instructions with regard to turning on the air conditioning.
Yes.
But we will provide updated instructions with regard to the changes to the alarm system.
Councillor Stamp, if you want to find out afterwards, I'm happy to show where that is. Councillor Bannon.
Through the chair, just if we could get that report further, I'm all for everyone having 24/7 access to the building, as long as it doesn't cost ratepayers too much more money. We do have phones, cars, computers, so yeah, as long as we can get that ongoing report, I don't think they should be getting charged for us coming in a bit later, that's all.
Yeah.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Bannon, I'm happy to review that in, say, 6 months' time, if you like, and come back with a report.
Okay. Councillor Karansky.
And just to be clear, Robert, just for people who are listening from home, councillors don't have access to all of the administration centre. Can you speak to what councillors do have access to?
Certainly, Councillor Karansky. Councillors have access to the councillor car park, which is shared with the executive leadership team, and also will have access to the foyer, which will allow them to get into the lift up to floor 5. So access is predominantly limited to floor 5, which is the floor that councillors have their offices here in the administration centre.
Awesome. Just to be clear, so there's only air conditioning and electricity that would be utilised for getting up in the lift and onto level 5, not for the entire building.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Is someone happy? Councillor Rabin, you've got a question?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Robert, at the moment, and I only raise this because I see that clause 3 says you want to update the councillor expenses and entitlements policy, so while we're here we may as well chuck something else in. At the moment, councillors can't access level 4, which is where the directors have their, and the CEO has their offices, and we have to essentially call ahead to organise a meeting or to book in. It would be typical in state government that ministers could access directors general if they were going to the building, and seeing as the state considers us ministers because we represent the entire city, not just our electorates, would it be possible to add an extra clause in there that gave councillors swipe card access to level 4 during office hours so they could come and talk to directors?
Mr Sprackham, would you like to respond? Yep.
Through the chair, anything's possible. I guess the difference in local government is we have a mayor and 12 divisional councillors, so there's 13 elected members who could be seeking audience with the CEO and director at any one time. Sylvia may want to speak to this, but I think I would I see that as quite disruptive, potentially, if I had multiple councillors roaming the floor trying to talk to me at any one point in time. My preference would be that obviously I try and make myself available to you, as do the other directors. However, if you did want to come and see me, I would appreciate that if you gave me a little bit of notice with regard to that, and potentially we did make a meeting. Having said that, I certainly would try and make myself available as soon as possible for that purpose. I'm also available on email and telephone.
I will vouch for that. I rang you last night, so thank you. Any other questions? Councillor
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Jeremiah.
I'd like to suggest an amendment to the report. Is this an appropriate time to speak to that?
You may.
Thank you. This report is on the right track, but it's not perfect. I understand and I appreciate the positive intent behind the report, but it isn't ideal considering the 24/7 nature of a councillor's work. So I move that the report be amended from immediate family members to persons deemed appropriate by the elected representative.
Okay. So you're moving that amendment?
I am moving that amendment.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that?
You may ask a question.
Just on that, Robert, what would the process be for, I accept your explanation of why you restricted it to immediate family members, but what would the process be for being able to have an after-hours meeting? Because under the current policy, if I wanted to have a meeting at 7 o'clock with the Premier, I wouldn't actually be able to bring her in. So what process, how many hoops would I have to jump through, and how much time and notice would I have to give to actually be able to get somebody extra in?
Yes,
Mr. Strachan, please respond.
through the chair. Yes, what I would imagine is in that particular case is we would need to undertake a particular risk assessment if there was going to be a meeting with the Premier inside the building. I think, look, a few days' notice, just giving the acting CEO or director heads up, we could undertake a risk assessment and potentially have some more support services in the building to support that meeting.
You don't always get a few days' notice when the Premier wants to come and have a chat.
Ideally, a few days' notice, or at least some notice, so we could make sure there's someone there to meet the Premier, to make sure they could find their way to the Mayor's office and they were supported while they were in the building, would be ideal.
Any other questions to that? Okay, Councillor Herrenmeyer has asked for an amendment. Is anyone willing to second that amendment? Councillor Hall is. Can I have a show of hands, please? That has been carried. Councillor Lane, are you against or abstaining?
Abstaining, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, can you please just turn your mic around? Thank you. All right. That has been carried, sorry. I will now refer to item 6.2. Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflicts of interest. I now refer to the Administration Manager, Ms Kay Sullivan, to open public discussion. Ms Sullivan, you may proceed.
Thank you. Through the chair. Good morning, councillors. Agenda item 6.2 is a transactional report relating to the surrender of an easement on private property. I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Any councillors have any questions? Someone happy to move this item? Councillor Hall, you're moving. Councillor Kerensky seconding. Can I have a show of hands, please? That has been carried. Thank you. Before you go, Ms Sullivan, does anyone have any general business for the Administration Manager, Ms Sullivan? Okay, thank you so much. You may leave. Okay. I will now refer to item 7.1. Can the Director of Organisational Services, Mr Strachan, please enter the discussion? But before we go into open discussion on this item, I believe there is a conflict of interest in Councillor Murphy. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, Councillor Karen Murphy, declare that I have a perceived conflict of interest in regards to 7.1 of the City Government's Committee due to the following reasons. The nature of the interest is that as the past President of the Beenleigh-Yardley Chamber of Commerce, I supported Haunted Attractions J. Rose application to Council, and a copy of that letter is with Council. I've also worked with Jay on many occasions in my role as a quota member. I also have a friendship with Jay. And the interest arising of this person's relationship with myself is that we just have a friendship. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy has declared a conflict of interest. They have indicated they propose... Did you indicate...
Perceive.
You want to stay? Did you indicate you want to stay? Yes. And participate in the meeting in accordance to section 175E of the Local Government Act 2009. You must decide if Councillor Murphy has a perceived or a real conflict of interest. Provide the reason for your decision and also determine if they are free to participate in the meeting while the matter is discussed, including by voting on the matter, or should leave the meeting. Firstly, we will vote on a motion that Councillor Murphy has a perceived conflict of interest. Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Raven is moving. Councillor Karansky has seconded. All those in favour? That has been carried. Councillors, you've indicated that Councillor Murphy has a perceived conflict of interest. I now open a motion that Councillor Murphy is free to participate in the meeting while the matter is discussed, and including by voting on the matter. Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Hall has moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Russell, can I have a show of hands, please? That has lost. I now open a motion that Councillor... Okay, can I ask those who voted for that, please, to say your name?
Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Councillor Fraser.
Councillor Jeremiah.
Councillor Bannon.
Okay, so...
Councillor Wilcox as well.
Oh, I didn't see you over there, sorry. Okay, can I ask those who are against that motion? Councillor Raven, Councillor Lane, Councillor Karansky, Mr Mayor, Councillor Power, Councillor Stemp and myself. Excuse me, Councillor Murphy, did you vote on that at all?
No, I abstained.
You abstained. Yeah, it is definitely lost. Okay, sorry, I didn't see Councillor Wilcox's hand.
So now, if it's lost, you need to open a motion that she stay away.
Thank you. My apologies for the delay, and this is all new to councillors. I now open a motion that Councillor Murphy should stay away while the matter is discussed and voted on. Councillors, is there a mover for that motion? Councillor Raven, a seconder. Councillor Hall, all those in favour, show of hands, please.
Motion that she leaves the room.
It's a motion that Councillor Murphy leave the room while the matter is being discussed. Okay, that has been carried. So it was Mr Mayor, Councillor Power, Councillor Lane for Councillor Karansky, Councillor Raven, Councillor Hall, Councillor Stemp and myself. Thank you, Councillor Murphy, for leaving. We'll let you know when you can come back in. Can we provide a... we need to...
That's what we need to clarify, who was against.
Yes, I'm just about to do that. Can I ask those who were against that, please, to put your hands up? You were against the motion? No. Councillor Russell, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Jeremiah, Councillor Bannon was against. Anyone abstaining? I think that was all. Okay. Councillors, you have decided that Councillor Murphy should leave. Can you please provide a reason for that decision, Councillor Raven?
Due to Councillor Murphy's relationship with the proponent and her past support, members of the public who are aware of that relationship and that support would see that she had an apprehended bias.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me through that. Before I pass it on to the Director of Organisational Services to open to the public discussion, Mr Strachan, I want to just say it was me myself who put this motion up, and I thank councillors for supporting that. I do believe over the time that the haunted house haven't had a fair year, and hence why I wanted this to be brought forward as a report to be open and transparent. And I'm not casting aspersions on anyone in this room for that, what has happened previously, but I just wanted to have this open and transparent so everyone can see. Could you please proceed, Mr Strachan?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'll just provide a little bit of update on the report. So the report provides an update on the haunted attractions proposal to lease a council-owned building in Logan Home. The property in question is part of one of 9 parcels of land at Logan Home, which together are referred to as the Logan Tourism Precinct. And the Antiques building is on one of those parcels of land. The Logan Tourism Precinct has had a little bit of a history. There was, it's well known and information is publicly available, there was a proposal to set up the Logan Alma Park Zoo on that particular site. That particular proposal fell away back in 2019. Subsequent to that, Council had a land transfer deed in place with Invest Logan to sell them the site. Invest Logan in turn were dealing with an organisation called Tunnel Vision Pty Ltd with regard to the potential to put a wave park facility on that site. While Invest Logan were dealing with Tunnel Vision, they were undertaking their due diligence on that particular site with regard to the purchase of the land from Council. During that particular time, TMR, Transport and Main Roads, indicated that there would be a declaration on that particular land and it would be used for as a future state-controlled road, being the Coomera Connector or part of the Coomera Connector corridor. During that period of time, on the 15th of March 2019, the Director General of TMR caused a notice to be published in the Queensland Government Gazette, gazetting that particular corridor. So the effect of the gazettal notice is that any new development application impacting the corridor would have to be referred under the Planning Act to the state government or the referral agency for a decision. That particular gazettal notice caused Invest Logan to signal under their due diligence that they would no longer be exploring the purchase of that particular land. It should also be noted that Tunnel Vision did approach the state government with regard to continuing the use of that site for a period of time, and that request was denied. Haunted house attractions, as the Chair has said, have been looking at using this particular site for some time. I do understand that a few other sites have been introduced for the purpose of the haunted house attractions. However, my understanding is that the Antiques building remains the site that they would like to have. There's a couple of issues there. As I said, any development application on that particular site, which would be required because the site, it would be I suppose, a material change of use to a tourist attraction, would require application as it is code accessible and would need to be referred to the State Assessment and Referral Agency. Discussions with SARA and TMR officers have indicated that there would be no support from the state government for any temporary use of any part of the land where a notification for future state-controlled road has been indicated. So given Council must refer any development application, it's likely that such an application would not be approved. In fact, they've indicated that the only use that they would approve is for short-term adjustment on that particular site. In addition to that, the local government would also have requirement, if we were to explore leasing on that particular site, for the existing use of the site, which is an antique store or shop, that lease opportunity would have to be offered to the market. So it couldn't just be offered to one provider. It would have to be opened up to the market. We have entered into discussions a while ago with the state government with regard to early acquisition of that site, because it is a little bit problematic in that the council is absorbing significant security and maintenance costs over that particular site. So we've approached TMR around acquiring that site early. I'm aware there have been some press in relation to TMR potentially revisiting the corridor for the Coomera Connector, given the sensitivity of the wetlands in Eagleby. However, at this particular point in time, TMR provided no formal notification of how that would change the alignment of the Coomera Connector. As such, we're still working under the gazettal notice that was issued on the 15th of March 2019. So we're still working under that gazettal notice and the prior discussions with regard to the use of that particular site. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr Strachan. I have Councillor Raven, Councillor Lane and then Mr Mayor. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I ask the Director of Strategy and Sustainability to come up?
You may. So you wish to ask a question to the Director? Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave, so just to be clear with this, how the sequence would work in a hypothetical world where we didn't go with what was on the board, the first step that the proponent would have to do is make a development application to us before we could engage in any leasing process, because we can't lease something for a purpose which isn't approved. Is that right?
Can you please respond, Director of Strategy and Sustainability?
Yeah, through the Chair, that's correct. So the first step would be for the proponent to reach out to council as landowner, and we typically then make a decision to give our landowners consent, which then permits a development application to be lodged and assessed by both council and the state.
Thank you. And there's nothing that would stop the proponent from doing that at this point in time, whether irrelevant of what we say here, the proponent could still choose to put in a development application, seek landowners' consent and go through the process?
No, that's right. The only thing that I would caution is giving landowners consent to permit lodgement of a development application, which we've been told directly would not be supported by the state. So I see that as a little bit of a circular exercise that doesn't add a lot of value.
No, I agree, and I don't think that it'd be fair on the proponent either. If you're going to take an application fee, and when you know full well that the state's already indicated it won't pass the state interest check, I just wanted to clarify that she still had the ability to apply and test the waters, if you like, to get a formal confirmation from both us and the state. But there's no way for council to consider a lease without an appropriate development approval in place, is there?
Through the Chair, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions to the Director of Strategy and Sustainability, David Hanson? Yeah,
Not from me, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Lane.
So, thanks very much, through the Chair. My understanding is you've offered the applicant numerous alternative sites or supported them through the process of looking at alternative sites throughout Logan, and those were rejected, is that correct?
Director of Organisational Services, Mr Strachan, can you respond, please?
Yep, that's correct, Councillor Lane.
On what basis were they rejected? Was it just not the site that the applicant wanted, or was it other reasons that they rejected the alternates?
I don't necessarily have that detail, Councillor Lane, but I imagine the sites weren't suitable for the purpose. Dave?
Through the Chair, the report just reflects information from my team that over the years, Mays Cottage, Castle Rumble, the historical village at Beenleigh were presented because they had a similar kind of feel and would play into the theme of the facility. I don't know the reasons intimately why they weren't pursued, but the operation did operate from the Historical Society for a period of time, I believe on an ad hoc basis, and then that discontinued when the Spirit of the Red Sands took up permanent home at the Historical Society.
So essentially council has tried to support a business that could bring tourism into the area, and it hasn't worked out. Thank you.
Okay. Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to highlight the clarity on this report. It certainly paints a very black and white picture of what is going to happen. Obviously, last week's announcement with the route possibly going to change, and I hope for the people of Eagleby that it does. But I guess when you look at the where it comes out on the Logan motorway, obviously the intentions will be to continue to join up on the Logan motorway from that side. In other words, it doesn't matter where the route through that area goes, it's going to still continue to go basically where our land is in relation to, because of the need to join it all up. I understand that. My concern obviously is that we continue to monitor what the announcements are on this, and to make sure that we keep in the loop with Main Roads to find out whether or not there is any change, because if there is major change, there's ramifications there for obviously for us to reconsider or any option. I was a little bit concerned last week that announcement was made and we weren't sort of informed that it was going to come out, given that we're major players in this Coomera connector, and that we've both got, both landing points on this side, on the northern side is at Skinner's Park, and on the Pacific Highway through our tourist destination land, which was probably going to be the highlight of our tourism plan for the future. Robert, can you assure us that you'll keep in touch with Main Roads to find out what the movements are on this and whether or not they've changed their intentions for that land? Because obviously we really need to keep in touch with them, because I'd hate to think that we're a forgotten partner in this. Thank you.
Director of Organisational Services, Robert Strachan, could you please respond?
Through the Chair, yes, I will. Mr Mayor, we are actively engaged with TMR in relation to the early acquisition of that particular site, and any change to the corridor will have a direct and material impact on that, so definitely we'll keep Council informed.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, through the Chair. So I understand that we've looked at other buildings to back to this business. Is there a part we can put the right department in touch with them? And we've got a proactive business that wants to set up shop in Logan, which is what we're all trying to do, is keep businesses in Logan. Is there the appropriate department can make contact and try and push a bit harder and get these people somewhere where they can get this business up and running? Is that something that the council is going to do, or a department will do? We don't want to see it fall to the wayside.
I might ask the Director of Strategy and Sustainability, David Hanson, to respond to that.
Yeah, through the Chair, Councillor, the Economic Development and Strategy branch is the best place to keep in touch with the proponent. So there's been a relationship there for many years, so happy for that to continue, and if there's an appetite to look for other alternative locations, we'll facilitate it.
Any other questions, councillors? There is a recommendation up on the board. Is anyone happy to move that? Councillor Raven. Councillor Lane, are you seconding?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Show of hands in favour, please. Thank you. That is carried. That marks the end of the Director of Organisational Services report. Is there any general business for the Director, Mr Strachan? Councillor Raven, do you can we ask Councillor Murphy to come back, please? Sorry. Wait, does anyone have any general business while we're waiting for Councillor Murphy?
Madam Chair, I was going to leave the building for 2 seconds.
Okay, do that. We'll just wait for Councillor Murphy to come in. Okay, any general business at all? No general business. Thank you, Mr Strachan. Okay, 8.1. I will now refer to item 8.1. Can the Corporate Governance Manager, Ms McDonald please enter the discussions. Before we open the discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflicts of interest. I refer to the Corporate Governance Manager to open discussion, public discussion. Ms McDonald, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last Ordinary Council meeting, councillors requested that this policy be placed on the agenda for discussion, so I take it that the report be read.
Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that it be received.
You move that it be received?
Yeah, just the report would be received.
Okay. Is someone happy to second that? Councillor Raven, can I have a show of hands, please? That has been carried. I will now refer to item 8.2. Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflicts of interest. I now refer to the Corporate Governance Manager to open discussions. Ms McDonald, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the Local Government Remuneration Commission's report and to determine the remuneration payable to councillors. I'll take the report as being read. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to talk on this or ask questions? Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor.
Waiting for the Mayor Clerk to get back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have prepared a recommendation for this. I wish that to be put up on the board.
Okay. Do you wish to read that out, Mr Mayor?
And I will move that the recommendation be put.
Do you want to read it out, Mr Mayor?
I move that.
Do you want to read it out?
Yep.
Or do you want me to read it out?
I'll move it.
You need to read it, Mr Mayor.
Read it for the recording, Mr Mayor.
I will read it. That the Mayor,
Yep.
Deputy Mayor and councillors reject the proposed wage increase for 2020-2021 awarded to all Level 7 councillors approved by the Local Government Remuneration Commission in solidarity with Logan families who are currently under enormous financial strain from the COVID-19 restrictions in accordance with Section 159 of the Local Government Act 2009. Mr Mayor has moved that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lane, a show of hands, please. Thank you. That has been carried. I will now refer to item 10.1, which is a late report. Before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? No conflict of interest. I now refer to the Corporate Governance Manager to open the public discussion. Ms McDonald, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this report is to amend the calendar of meetings for local government committee meetings for the period January to June, specifically to remove the special council meeting which was to be held on the 22nd of June. I take the report as being read. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Is someone happy to move that? Councillor Raven, Councillor Murphy is seconding. All those in favour, please show of hands. That has been carried. Thank you. That marks the end of the Corporate Governance Manager's report. Is there any general businesses for the Corporate Governance Manager? No general business. I note that due to social distancing restrictions, not all managers or staff could attend today. That being said, does anyone have any general business for the Director of Organisational Services, for any other manager? No. That completes our agenda for today. I declare the City Governance Committee of the 9th of June 2020 concluded at 10:06, and the City Infrastructure Committee will commence in 10 minutes. Thank you.